So the subject tonight is the second Exodus. We're going to go to Micah chapter 5. Mikayahu, who is like Yahweh. This is a very important book, and it represents, like, the prophet represents the second coming. That's why the name is as Mikael, but Mikayahu, who is like Yahweh. Mikael, who is like the mighty one, who is like Elohim. So the prophet represents Mikael, and therefore his prophecy represents the second coming and what it will happen during it. And it says, chapter 5, but you, Bethlehem Ephratah, though you are little among thousands of Yehudah, yet out of you shall come forth to me the one to be ruler in Israel, whose goings forth are from old, from everlasting. With this verse, there are a bunch of things that we could say, even though it doesn't necessarily speak about the second Exodus. However, it does speak about the first and second coming in just one verse with two different interpretations, and I'm going to be brief. Bethlehem is where Yahushua the Messiah was born literally, physically. The second coming is born through Messiah in the congregation of the chosen few. And as we know, Yahushua is the bread that came from the heavens. Bethlehem means the house of bread. And as we know, Yahushua said, destroy the temple and I will raise it up in 3 days, meaning his body. He was talking about his resurrection. So his body is the temple of Yahweh, therefore the house of Yahweh, and he is the bread of life. So he is the house of bread. That's why he was born in Bethlehem. Ephrata means prosperous, plentiful, fruitful, as in Ephraim, who Yahweh promised to make a fruitful nation. They would become the multitude of nations. So Bethlehem Ephrata is a place physically in which the Messiah was born, geographically. The second coming has to do with the meaning of those two words, meaning that he will come through spiritually through Messiah, the first, Yahushua, who is the bread of life and the house of Yahweh, and genetically he would come from Ephraim, Ephrata, Ephraim. As we know, the second coming, as I have been explaining, is from the tribe of Yahusef, while the first coming, as we already know, came from Yahudah. That's why then it says, though you are little among the thousands of Yahudah, yet out of you shall come forth to me the one to be ruler in Israel. So, as we know, once again, physically, literally, Yahushua the Messiah came not only from the land of Yahudah, but from the genes, from the tribe of Yahudah. But as we know in Colossians, in Romans, and other books of the New Testament, it is written that in Yahushua there is not a Yahudi nor a Greek. There is no slave nor free. There is no man nor woman, because we are all one in him, who is the son of Yahweh. And, as we already discussed, is son of Yahudah genetically. And therefore, he who is to rule as king, for Messiah is the high priest, the second coming is as king, comes through Messiah as the branch of David, as I have explained also in other times. So the one to be ruler in Israel, whose going forth are from old. Messiah came 2,000 years ago, but he is the word of Yahweh, through whom all creation was done. So his plan started way before creation. And if we were to see it as physically, this same verse is talking about how, even though during the second coming he's going to do this, come to rule in Israel, he actually started his going forth 2,000 years ago. So from this point on, we could talk of what Messiah started as the times of old, whose goings forth are from old, from everlasting. Here's when there's no doubt, it's talking about eternity, what happened before creation. So then verse 3 is the one that I wanted to discuss mainly. And 4. Therefore, he shall give them up until the time that she who is in labor has given birth. So, therefore he shall give them up, as in when Messiah came and everybody started worshiping another Messiah, following another doctrine. They rejected Messiah. Some rejected Messiah from the beginning, and others started being led towards a different doctrine with a different Messiah than the one they actually were supposed to believe in. So there are these two groups, basically the Jewish people who did not believe in Messiah, and I'm going to use that title, and then Christians who started following the Roman gods through the names that they made up using the scriptures changed a little. Well, they changed them through the translations, but even before that, as you may know, when they would read the scripture in churches, Catholic churches, they would read it in Latin. Even if nobody understood Latin, they would just read it in Latin. So nobody understood anything that they were reading. So it was basically as if there was no scripture and they were hiding everything that scripture says. Then afterwards, they translated them in many wrong ways so that it will make it more obscure. But not only that, after generations, they basically programmed us not to want to read because we just want to see a movie or we just want to see stuff. We just want to be entertained, or at least want it when we were in the world. And we just didn't want to read. So I don't know about those who are listening to me, but normally when I was in school, I remember in my experience and the people around me, nobody really liked to read. So, and I know that that's the case nowadays. And the kids that do like to read nowadays, as I have seen in some cases, what they like to read is actually things written by the enemy, like Harry Potter, that has to do with witchcraft, and trying to program the minds of the kids to see all that as normal or as even nice. So in this case, it said verse 3, therefore he shall give them up, as in the apostasy. Yahweh allowed the people to go to false doctrines, false Elohim, until the time that she who is in labor has given birth. This, we already read it last week, so I'm not going to explain it all the way, but for those who may be listening tonight and didn't listen last week, in Revelation 12, we see this woman. It says, now a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a garland of 12 stars. Then, being with child, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth. So, is the congregation of Israel the chosen people, but the real chosen people, those who accept Messiah Yahushua and the true doctrine, they are the woman who is about to give birth to a bunch of things, a new life, a new world, but in this case, in this chapter, to the second coming, as in from the congregation that is a virgin spiritually, one person Yahweh will raise to become the leader of that congregation and lead them in the second Exodus, just like in Israel, who was in Egypt as slaves, as nowadays people are slaves to sin in spiritual Egypt. From the midst of Israel, Yahweh raised Moshe to lead them out of Egypt and to the promised land. So it's the same thing nowadays. From the congregation who is in spiritual Egypt, Yahweh will raise the witness like Moshe and the witness like Aaron, and they will lead the chosen few. Excuse me. They will lead the chosen few to the promised land. Here, this is as a it's a prophecy, but it's also taking in account what happened with the Messiah as he was born of a virgin. So since Messiah came from a virgin physically, the second coming will come from a virgin spiritually. That means the congregation we saw in the book of Deuteronomy 18 that Yahweh said that he would raise a prophet like Moshe from the midst of Israel. And we see it over and over again all throughout scriptures. Also, Messiah said that we needed to be born again in not only of water but of the Spirit. And as we see in Isaiah, and this is not the case or the point of this study, so I'm not going to go into that very deeply. Messiah said that we need to be born again. Most Christians, or basically all Christians, believe that to be born again, all you need to do is believe or make a certain prayer, and then you're born again, and that's it. However, they are not taking into account what Scripture tells us about being born again, and they are not even taking into account how babies are born. So the fact that Messiah said that we need to be born again, he is connecting what we need to do spiritually to what happens physically when we come into the world. And we need to understand that from the moment in which the father puts his seed into the mother and there is conception, there are 9 months until that baby comes out of the mother. And then when the baby comes out of the mother is when everybody can see the baby. But before that, only the mother had the baby within her, and she couldn't see it, but she had a connection with it, of course. So what I'm trying to say is that what the Messiah was telling us, what the scriptures tells us, is that the word of Yahweh, the seed of the Father, the name of the Son, Yahushua, according to Revelation 19:13, when we put that seed in our heart, is as being conceived. When we believe in the Messiah and confess his name, we are being conceived. From that moment on, we got to start walking on the way, because Yahushua is the way. So we need to walk. We need to do what he tells us, fulfill his commandments, give fruit. So when we start doing that, is as the baby getting formed in the womb. We are being formed while in this world. So we are being formed through our walking in Messiah, as a baby is being formed during those 9 months. And as we know, there are 2 ways in which a person can enter the kingdom. One, dying and then resurrecting. And the other one, if the person is here during the harvest and does everything that Messiah said, that person will be transformed in the blink of an eye. Whatever the case, the moment when the soul receives the new body, the transformation or the resurrection, is the actual new birth. After having lived a life in this world, being conceived, being formed into the person that Yahweh wanted to bring to the new world. So just like you can see this body until the baby comes out of the mother, we are going to see birth until we see our new body. So the actual resurrection or transformation is the real new birth. Until that moment, we are being conceived. And that's why also there are people who can lose their salvation, just as a baby can die during those 9 months. And we need to stay strong during all our life here so that we may enter the new world. So I am explaining all of that, even though I said I wasn't going to do it that much, because in Revelation 12 we are seeing that the congregation will give birth to a person, and that person will be the leader of that congregation, who will rule the nations with a rod of iron. It says later on in verse 5, she bore a male child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, a king. And her child was caught up to Elohim and his throne, which is what we see in the previous chapter, Revelation 11, when the witness like Moshe, who is this person, comes out of the congregation and is killed by the beast. Once he resurrects, he will be raised up to the throne so that he can take out Lucifer out of heaven. So the resurrection of the witness like Moshe is the birth of this male child that we see in Revelation 12. That is the fulfillment spiritually of what Yahushua fulfilled physically, literally, by being born of a virgin. So in Revelation 12, we see that there is a woman who is going to give birth. That woman is the congregation that is going to give birth to her king. And as we were reading in Micah or Micaiah 5, verse 3, therefore he shall give them up until the time that she who is in labor has given birth. So until the time when the second coming has already preached, died, and resurrected. When the second coming has resurrected, the two witnesses have resurrected, is when the Almighty will now start the second Exodus, as it is being said here. Therefore he shall give them up to the nations, to the four corners of the earth, until the time that she who is in labor has given birth already. And it's what we see in Revelation 12. I already explained it last week if you want to see it. Then the remnant of his brethren, the remnant meaning the chosen few, the remnant of his brethren shall return. And look how it says his brethren, because he came out from the midst of the congregation. So they are his brothers. Like Moshe, his brethren were Israel. So once he was born, now it talks about what will happen to his brethren, the remnant. Then the remnant of his brethren shall return to the children of Israel, and he shall stand and feed his flock in the strength of Yahweh, as in when Yahweh fed the congregation during the Exodus in the wilderness. And he shall stand and feed his flock, the remnant, the chosen few, in the strength of Yahweh, because now he will be one with Yahweh, and we can do all things through Messiah who strengthens us. So we see that is the second coming as the first, or the second coming being strengthened by the first to do the will of Yahweh the Father. In the strength of Yahweh, in the majesty, listen to this, in the majesty of the name of Yahweh his Elohim. In the majesty of the name, not only the majesty of Yahweh, but the majesty of the name. And as we know, the name is Messiah as a person in the flesh. So also it says in the majesty, and as I have explained in other studies, in Revelation 33 we see that Moshe asks the Almighty to show him the way, which is the first coming. And the Almighty explains what would happen through the first coming. Then Moshe requests to know the majesty, the honor, the esteem of the Father, which is the second coming. And the Father shows him, tells him what it is. And one of the things that the Almighty says is that he will pass in front of him and proclaim the name of Yahweh. So we see once again here the connection with the second coming, not only king, but also in his name, in the majesty of the name of Yahweh his Elohim. And they shall abide, for now he shall be great. For now he shall be great. So during the first coming, he became poor to make us rich. During the second coming, he's going to be hated by everybody, rejected once again, and killed. But after his resurrection, when the first and last become one, we see that it says, for now he shall be great. At that moment, the greatness of the Father will be clear, starting with the few and then with the rest of the world during a certain time. So, and they shall abide, for now he shall be great, to the ends of the earth. And this one shall be peace. When the Messiah came, the first one, he said, I did not come to bring peace. I came to bring a sword and a fire. division, because a father is going to be against his son and his son against the father. So the Messiah said that he didn't come to bring peace. However, to the chosen few, to those who believe in him, he gave us the peace that surpasses all understanding. But he didn't bring peace to the world. Now in the second coming, the last, after everything that will happen, dying and resurrecting, he will come to establish peace by force. Obviously in the name of Yahweh, so through justice and truth, as we see in Revelation 19. The same rider of the white horse that we see in Revelation 6. In Revelation 6, before dying and resurrecting. In Revelation 19, after resurrecting. So that's why it says, to the ends of the earth, and this one, as if there was another one that didn't bring peace. And this one shall be peace. When the Assyrian comes into our land, the Assyrian represents Nimrod, the beast, the world leader, not the Antichrist, the world leader. When the Assyrian comes into our land, and when he treads in our palaces, also we need to understand the beast will set up the abomination of desolation, through which is going to destroy most of the world. And that abomination of desolation is what everybody calls the Antichrist, the false Messiah. So it says, and when he treads in our palaces, then we will raise against him 7 shepherds and 8 princely men. 7 is completion. Now the shepherds of the world would be completed, the chosen few. 8 is a new beginning for eternity, having Messiah as the leader of those 8. Just like nowadays in the camp of the enemy, Lucifer is the leader of 7 fallen angels. Those 7 angels connect to 9 Nephilim or hybrids in this world, who are the 9 unknown. That's how they are known in the Illuminati. And then below those, there are the 13 families of the Illuminati. Rothschild, Rockefeller, and the rest. And then below them is, the papacy and the army and all of the rest of things. And secret societies, of course. So we see here that Yahweh mentions that he will set up 7 shepherds and 8 princely men. So there are several ways in which this is explained. And in Judaism, these shepherds and princely men are mentioned as David and others of the important people that are mentioned in scriptures. And just to confirm what I was saying, the way I was interpreting it, verse 6 does it for me. It says, they shall waste with the sword the land of Assyria, of Ashur, and the land of Nimrod and its entrances. So it mentions right away Nimrod. Thus he shall deliver us from the Assyrian when he comes into our land and when he treads within our borders. So when the beasts will send the army to destroy those who believe in the Almighty Creator through his Son, the Messiah, Yahweh, through his second coming, will harvest, as we see in Revelation 14, his chosen few, his remnant, as we saw above. So that's why it says, thus he shall deliver us from the Assyrian when he comes into our land. That's why Yahweh also said, when you see the abomination of desolation where it should not be, run to the wilderness. In Luke 17, Matthew 24, and Mark 13. Now we're going to go to Jeremiah 31 and going to read from verse 7. It says, for thus says Yahweh, sing with gladness for Jacob, and shout among the chief of the nations. Proclaim, give praise, and say, O Yahweh, save your people, the remnant of Israel. Here we see once again something that I have explained, which is that when the Father mentions Jacob and Israel right away in the same verse most of the time, is because he's trying to speak about the many and the few who are his people, but the many will be the people that will inhabit the kingdom, while the few will be the kings and priests of that kingdom. As we know, Jacob means supplanter, he who grabs the heel, because he wanted to supplant Esau, as he did it when he bought he bought the place of firstborn, and then he bought or got the blessing from Yitzhak. So that's the name Jacob, supplanter. It became something good in the life of Jacob because he is righteous. However, the name, by definition, is not something very good if we were to it's taken to be something negative. So that is why also when the Almighty saw what Israel or Jacob had become spiritually, and what he had taken from Esau, and the way he did it, and the reasons why he did it, it was basically because he saw that Esau or Edom was not a set apart man, a righteous man, and the firstborn is normally the priest of the house. So Jacob wanted to have that privilege to be the priest and to do it right, not like Esau was doing it by lying to his father and doing a bunch of evil things. So Jacob did it also with the help of his mother, because his mother also saw that Jacob was the true priest of the house, even though he was born second. So after everything, Yahweh gives Jacob a new name, Yisrael. Yisrael represents he who will rule like Elohim. It's also translated as he who overcomes, because he overcame men and Elohim when he fought with an angel. So when the scripture, like in this case, speaks of Jacob and then Israel, we know it was the same person, but it was two mantles of that same person, two parts of that same person, because one married Rachel and the other married Leah, Jacob and Israel, because when Jacob took the blessing from Esau, he also took his wife, which was supposed to be Leah. That's why Leah used to cry a lot, because she wanted to have a righteous man and she saw that Esau was evil, because they made a pact, their parents. Leah and Rachel were supposed to be married to the two sons of Yitzhak, Jacob and Israel. When Jacob took the blessing from Esau, he also took his wife, basically, and that's why he ended up getting married with Leah. And it's more things that I could say right here, but I'm going to continue because we're with the Exodus. The point here is that when he says Jacob and Israel, he's talking about the many and the few. Jacob represents the many who believe but have not come to the name, the many who believe but do not want to go up a spiritual level. They are just happy where they are. They just they're conforming basically to being the inhabitants, the people, the many. And Israel represents those who will rule like Elohim during the eternity over the people. So Jacob and Israel is the same people. However, there are two parts or two roles that they represent. So that's why it says, sing with gladness for Jacob and shout among the chief of the nations. Proclaim, give praise and say, O Yahweh, save your people, the remnant of Israel, meaning the few represented by Israel, who are of Israel because they believe in Yahushua. Behold, I will bring them from the north country. So he's not saying, first of all, there are two things important to say here. He's not saying that the people of Israel would be in Israel when this would happen. It actually says that they will be taken to Israel, so they have to be taken from everywhere else. However, Jewish people nowadays interpret some of these verses to say that it is what is happening right now when they are going in a plane to Israel. And nowadays, actually, they say that the majority of Jewish people live in Israel. So to them, the second Exodus has been fulfilled. To them, I want to make that clear, not true, but to them it has been fulfilled. And that is why they are expecting Messiah already. Even though Scripture tells us that First comes Messiah and then the Exodus, because Moshe came to start the Exodus. Moshe, imagine if Moshe would have come after they came out in the Exodus, would have been a problem. So some of the things, the way they see it or explain it according to the Talmud, makes no sense when we see it in scriptures, the way it happened. And the way it happened, Yahweh made it happen so that we could understand it as a reflection of what would happen in the end. So, behold, I will bring them from the north country and gather them from the ends of the earth. Among them the blind and the lame. The other thing that I wanted to mention, there are some who, well, for instance, I said Luke 17, Matthew 24, and Mark 13 are the chapters where Messiah was explaining the signs of the end and how it would happen. And he talks about three different people. One who obeys, one who, two that stay at home, and out of those two, one is taken and one is left there. Messiah explains that the one that obeys is the one that gets out of the house, runs away, and eventually the Father will save him wherever he may be at, as we are seeing here. There are two. One is taken, the other one is left. The one taken is taken to die, as Messiah explains afterwards. He's taken to be killed. And the one that is left is the one that takes the mark of the beast, and that's why he's left there as if he was part of society of the enemy. Eventually, those will be thrown in the lake of fire. So, in Luke, we see that the Almighty, through Yahushua, is saying, whoever you may be, when you see the abomination of desolation in the world, get out of your house, get out of your job, get out of wherever you may be, go out to the mountains, away from civilization. The book of Luke was written for any man, because it speaks of Messiah as the Son of Man. So it was written for any man to understand, any man wherever he may be in the world. So Messiah doesn't mention Yahudah. However, in Mark and in Luke, Messiah says, those who are in Yahudah run to the mountains. So there are certain people who say, well, that is literal, it's just the people that are in Yahudah. However, although I'm sure, I believe that will happen first in Yahudah, so literally it will happen. I always say that I believe in the scripture to happen literally and then spiritually, both ways, because there's no contradiction in scripture. So when the abomination of desolation appears, Messiah says in the place where it should not be, people interpret that to be the temple, not understanding that just the fact that Satan will be in a human body, that would be being in the temple, because the human body is the temple of Yahweh. So just the fact that Satan will be in a human body saying that he is Messiah, that would be Satan in the temple. The temple used to be in the land of Benjamin. So why should Messiah said, when you see the abomination of desolation in the land of Benjamin, those who are in the land of Yahudah run? Makes no sense. It should be those who are in the land of Benjamin. So, when we need to understand that although it will start in the land of Israel, as I have mentioned several times, what the Messiah is saying, those who are part of Yahudah, those who are the chosen few that praise Yahweh, which is the meaning of Yahudah, those who praise Yahweh, the praise of Yahweh. And as I have explained, the Almighty, just as he did right here, Jacob and Israel, the many and the few, he also does it another way. Israel and Yahudah. When he does it like that, Israel represents the many, as in the many tribes that were scattered all over the world, the 10 tribes. And then Yahudah as the few, because it was only Yahudah and Benjamin, and a few of Levi, or Levi. So, when we see that it says Israel and Yahudah, it's talking about the many and the few. So when Yahushua said those who are in Yahudah run, he's talking about those who are part of the few chosen, run to the mountains, wherever you may be. That's why in Luke doesn't mention it, but in Mark and Matthew he does, because he's talking to the kings, and the kings understand that. In the case of Matthew, in the case of Mark, he's talking to slaves, but in this case it would be slaves to justice, slaves to his will, in which case that is why we are in Yahudah, kings, but at the same time slaves to justice, as Paul said it in his writings. So I continue with verse 8. Behold, I will bring them from the north country and gather them from the ends of the earth. Among them the blind and the lame, the woman with child and the one who labors with child together. This is a great blessing, because in the same chapters that I just mentioned from the new covenant, Yahushua says, woe to the women who are giving birth and those who are basically feeding their child in their first months, because it will be tribulation, great tribulation. But the Almighty Yahushua is talking about the women who are not with the Father, who are not doing the will of the Father. They will go through a rough time if they are having children during this time, because they will be, well, you know how bad it could be and how worried a person can get when she has a child. So we see here that Yahweh is telling us that those who are part of the congregation, those who are part of the chosen few, will not have to worry, even if they are blind, even if they are lame, because Yahweh will take care of them somehow. He will make sure that they will be fine. The woman with child and the one who labors with child together. A great throng shall return there. They shall come with weeping. They shall come with weeping. That means that when they get out of the house, when they have to run away from the abomination of desolation that is coming, that I have mentioned many times already, and we'll see eventually, when they see it coming, they have to go. Like when Lot had to get out of Sodom and Gomorrah. They have to go. And of course, it's not going to be a pretty feeling, because it is going to be basically the hardest or highest test of faith that the congregation will have, the moment when they will have to decide to just leave everything behind and go to the mountains looking for the Father. So that's why it says they shall come with weeping. People will go crying. People will do it because they have to do it, but it won't be something that they will enjoy doing at the beginning, because in some cases they will have to leave somebody behind, as in Lot, who left his wife, who turned back and became salt. So that will happen with certain families. So it says, they shall come with weeping, and with supplication, and with supplications I will lead them. I will cause them to walk by the rivers of waters, in a straight way, in which they shall not stumble. That is Messiah. Of course, if they are in Messiah, Yahweh will make sure that they go exactly where they have to go, when they have to go, and everything perfect. I will cause them to walk by rivers of waters, and in a straight way in which they shall not stumble. For I am a father to Israel. For I am a father to Israel. Right there, he's saying the transformation is about to happen. So he is about to become the father of the chosen few. However, he's already saying, I am the father of Israel. Remember that just like Yitzhak represents the Messiah, Yahushua, and that's why Abraham was going to sacrifice Yitzhak, his only begotten son, as Yahweh called him. Now Yahweh gave his only begotten son, Yahushua. So Yahushua and Yitzhak are connected. In the same way, Jacob, Israel, and the second coming. So Yahweh here is saying that the second coming already died and resurrected, and that's why, for I am a father to Israel, to the second coming, to the last who already resurrected, and who is going to harvest the rest of his people in a moment. For I am a father to Israel, and Ephraim is my firstborn. This is very important verse for many reasons. Like I have said, I think I already said it tonight. Just like Yahushua came from the tribe of Yehudah, the second coming will come from the tribe of Ephraim. Yes, I already said it when we were talking about Ephrata. So it is confirming. And it is funny because Yitzhak is the only begotten son, just like Messiah is called the only begotten son of the Father. However, the second coming is called the firstborn. Not only, but firstborn, because he's the first of 144,000 that will come after, and then of many thousands of thousands who will be justified and resurrected. So that's why Ephraim means fruitful, because through the last, a bunch of people will enter. That's why he will be firstborn. But Messiah came as the only begotten. So just like Jacob took the right to be called firstborn from Esau by purchasing it and then by dressing as Esau, the second coming will dress as a Gentile, will come as a Gentile, as a thief in the night. People will think he's a Gentile, but genetically he's actually from Ephraim. Because Ephraim are so many that they are all over the world, and many of them are called Latin people nowadays. Many of them are, everywhere in the world, like I said. Since it's called Ephraim and means many, represents the 10 tribes of Israel, which are many, the many, who are all over the world. Just like Yahweh called Israel his firstborn when he took them out of Egypt during the first Exodus. So he's making reference to all of that, making reference to the second coming, who's going to harvest the many, and who, through his resurrection, after dying in Messiah, he became the firstborn, who by coming as a thief in the night, he got the blessing and became firstborn through Messiah, who is only begotten Son. I hope that is clear. It's very important, and eventually I will explain it a little bit further. So now verse 10, it says, "Hear the word of Yahweh, O nations, and declare it in the islands afar off, and say, He who scattered Israel will gather him. He who scattered Israel will gather him." Interesting, him as in one person, because the chosen few, no matter the fact that they are a group of people, each of them is a part of the body of Messiah. That's why him, because Messiah is the head and the congregation is the body. So that's why it says, "He who scattered Israel will gather him and keep him as a shepherd does his flock," because the second coming comes as a good shepherd, as the good shepherd, because Messiah said in John 10 that he is the door and the good shepherd. The good shepherd comes second so that he can go through the door. Messiah is the door because he is the way to the Father, that which is between the Father and men. And the second coming is the shepherd that will take men to the Father through that door, which is the first coming, the Messiah, Yahushua. So we see it here is happening. "And keep him as a shepherd does his flock." Just like David, just like Moshe, they were shepherds. "For Yahweh has redeemed Jacob, because through the blood of Messiah the first, as he said, this is the blood of the new pact which is spilled for the many." He mentioned the many because the blood of Messiah is connected to the many. The body of Messiah is connected to the few, the chosen few, 144,000. That's why in the book of Revelation 14, when we see the harvest, which is what will happen, the transformation, the wheat, which is what we use to make bread, and Messiah said that the bread is his body, the wheat represents the chosen few, 144,000, which are used to make bread, the body of Messiah. And then comes the grapes, the vine. The grapes from the vine have to be crushed in order to get the wine from it. And that's why the many will have to die in order then to be resurrected and enter justified after judgment. Being the blood, because the blood was represented by the wine. And Messiah said that his blood would be spilled for the many. So we are seeing here that it says that Jacob has been redeemed. And we know that the redemption that we get of our soul is through the blood of Messiah. His blood is the price that Yahweh paid in order to redeem our souls. So it says about Jacob, the many who will be redeemed after dying, because their souls will be redeemed because they were bought through the blood of Messiah. So hear the word of Yahweh, O nations, and declare it in the islands afar off, and say, He who scattered Israel will gather him and keep him as a shepherd does his flock. For Yahweh has redeemed Jacob and ransomed him from the hand of one stronger than he, the enemy, Satan, the Elohim of this world. Verse 12 says, Therefore they shall come and sing in the height of Zion. We see that in Revelation 14, verse 1. The chosen few are around Mount Zion with the name of the Father and the Son, meaning that they are already part of the kingdom, which is represented by Mount Zion. The fact that it says that they will be singing, we see in Revelation 15, after the harvest, they will be gathered above the firmament, and they will sing the song of Moshe and the Lamb. Two people, one song, because the first and last will become one finally. Yahushua the Messiah and the second coming, the witness like Moshe, will become one. That's why the chosen few sing the song of the Lamb and of Moshe. Therefore they shall come and sing in the height of Zion, streaming to the goodness of Yahweh. For wheat and new wine, blessed be the Father. For wheat and new wine and oil. Wheat, the chosen few. New wine, because the grapes had to go through the wine press in order to get the new wine. So the fact that it says new wine, it means that it just went through the wine press. Revelation 14 just happened, basically, in this point in time. And oil represents the unction, the Spirit, being covered by the Spirit. So the oil is the Spirit that will cover the few and the many to connect us to the Father. The wheat is the few, the wine is the many. For the young of the flock and the herd, for wheat and new wine and oil for the young of the flock and the herd. Their souls shall be like a well-watered garden, because Messiah now will be with us, and Yahushua the Messiah is the water of life. And they shall sorrow no more at all. At all. Hosea, verse 10 and 11 says, They shall walk after Yahweh. They shall walk after Yahweh, because Yahweh will come as the good shepherd, and they are as his sheep. And where are they walking? In the way of Yahweh. What is that? The Messiah, the Son, the first. So Messiah came to become the way, to later come as the shepherd, to walk the way and bring the sheep to his Father. So, they shall walk after Yahweh. We see in Revelation 14, when speaking about the chosen few, it says, verse 4, These are the ones who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. Follow the Lamb wherever he goes. They are not following a man. They are not following a church, a doctrine. They are not just sitting in a church. They are following the Lamb wherever he goes. If the Spirit tells them this is not the place, I'm not going to remain here, then we should not remain there. And I mean there as in false doctrines. When we go, when I used to go to Christian churches, and I'm going to, include the people that are listening, when we go to a Christian church and we see a bunch of things that are wrong, that are not right with scriptures, we should just get out of there and keep on looking, keep on walking, following the Lamb, because that's what we must do, even if sometimes it feels like we are alone. That will happen for sure. So it says, verse 10 of Hosea 11, They shall walk after Yahweh. He will roar like a lion. This is important. He will roar like a lion, because he came the first time as the lamb, and they did not recognize him because they were expecting the lion. Now Christians are expecting the lamb, but they will get a lion and they will think that he's too loud. So that's why he said that he will come as a thief in the night. He will come in a way that they are not expecting him, and in a moment in which they are not expecting him. He said it in scriptures. So they shall walk after Yahweh. He will roar like a lion because he comes to do justice. He comes as a king, and the lion is the king of the jungle. So when he roars, then his sons, meaning his sheep, because when he roars, he's basically the good shepherd speaking to his sheep, and his sheep hear the voice and recognize the voice. They don't see and recognize, they hear and recognize. So the way to recognize is by listening to the doctrine and checking it in scriptures. Because if it doesn't fit with scriptures, then you recognize that it's not from the Father. So then his sons shall come trembling from the west. Then his sons shall come trembling from the west. Meaning that his sons, his people, are mainly in the west right now. That's why his chosen few will come from the west, trembling, because they will come out weeping, as we saw also. They shall come trembling like a bird from Egypt, because it's the second Exodus. Just like they came out of Egypt, now they will come out of the west. As it says Revelation 12, that Yahweh will give the wings of the great eagle to the congregation, to the woman who gave birth to the male child. Revelation 12. Yahweh will give the great wings of the great eagle so that she may fly from the beast to the wilderness, to the place that Yahweh prepared for her. So we are seeing it here. They shall come trembling like a bird from Egypt, like a dove from the land of Ashur, from the land of Nimrod, from the world of the rebel, the world of rebellion. Like a dove. Why like a dove? Because the dove represents the spirit. That's why the spirit of Yahweh came down as a dove and entered Messiah. That is because the chosen few will finally all be transformed into the new bodies, having all been filled with the spirit. So like a dove from the land of Ashur. Ashur means a step. So they will be able to go from this world to the next in just one step, meaning in the twinkling of an eye, in a moment. And I will let them dwell in their houses, and I will let them dwell in their houses, says Yahweh. Finally, Yahweh will give us what is ours, meaning whatever we will receive from what we have done in this world. And he will let us dwell in our houses in Israel, finally. I'm going to read the 12, even though I wasn't going to read it, but it has to do with everything that is happening right now with the apostasy, the rebellion in which the congregation, basically I want to say church in that case, just so that you know, when I say church, I mean people who are following wrong doctrines, because the word church is wrong. It has to do with a goddess. So when I say congregation, I mean the true congregation, those who do right, and when they see something that is wrong, they change it. So when I mean congregation, I mean the chosen few. When I say church, I mean the many, just so you know. So it says here, Ephraim has encircled me with lies. Ephraim has encircled me with lies. The many, they have just lied and lied, have accepted the lie instead of the truth, because Yahushua said he is the truth. Therefore, a false Messiah is the lie. Ephraim has encircled me with lies. In a marriage, in a wedding ceremony, the woman has to encircle the man 7 times, at least in the Hebrew culture, or should I say maybe Jewish culture. The woman has to encircle the man 7 times. It is funny that it says, Ephraim has encircled me with lies, as Yahweh saying that his wife that he's taken from the people of the many of Israel, called normally Ephraim, have been trying to do a pact with him, a marriage with him, all based on lies. And that is what the apostasy is. All the false names that people invoke and use to refer to the Almighty and His Son, not knowing that they are actually calling the enemy and the false Messiah. The wrong translations, mainly the wrong doctrines that people follow, even though you can discard all those wrong doctrines even with a wrong translation. The fact of following men, the fact of wanting material things, success, being loved by other people, etc., 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 instead of the Father. That's what the Yahweh is talking about here, and something that maybe one of you thought about. Interesting is that, as I have mentioned before, just like Messiah came through a virgin and he never sinned, he never committed a sin, because his ministry and his fulfillment was to fulfill the law, not sin in any way, so that anybody who had sinned could be forgiven and enter the new world. That's why Paulus said that Messiah came only one time in order to take out sin. He doesn't have to come out to come to the world again with the same job. It would be pointless, because he already did it and he completed it. He finished it. He said it is finished right before he died. So that job that he had to complete, which was to take sin from the middle, out of the way, that was fulfilled. So the second coming doesn't have to do anything regarding that. He does not have to do what Messiah already did. He has to do something different or extra. Always, of course, through Messiah the first, who is giving him the strength. So I want to make that clear. That is why the second coming is as the prodigal son, is as Zorobabel, as Moshe. Moshe was born in Egypt, in the world of slavery. Egypt means world of affliction. Zorobabel means born in Babel, born in confusion, sown in confusion. The prodigal son, we know, was the son of the Almighty. However, he fell in sin. He was eating with the pigs. That represents taking doctrines from false. I don't want to. This is a symbolism that the scripture tells us very clear, but I think that people may get offended if I just say it as clear as the scripture tells it. So basically, the fact that the prodigal son eats with the pigs represents the fact that the second coming will end up in false doctrines, eating false doctrines that pigs have been eating for 2,000 years. Pigs represent people who try to act or appear as if they are pure, but they are not. The pig has a split hoof, or hoof, I believe. So when they lay on the floor, they take it out as to show that they are pure, but they do not have the other part that shows pureness, which is the way they process the food. They don't do it as the cows, for instance. So they are not pure animals. However, is the only animal that appears pure to the eye. That if we were just to see him, it looks pure. But if we were to see the interior, we see that it does not what it's supposed to do. So that's why the pig represents those who want to act and appear to the other people as if they are pure, but in their hearts they are not. So anyways, I'm explaining a bunch of things. The fact that it says here, Ephraim has encircled me with lies, has to do that the people will fall in the apostasy. And it has to do with the fact that the second coming, who comes from Ephraim, would fall in lies, in the lies of that people, which encircle the Father with lies. So Ephraim has encircled me with lies, and the house of Israel with deceit. And the house of Israel with deceit. But Yehudah still walks with Elohim. This is great, because Yehudah, the tribe that from whom came Messiah, Yahushua the first, who never sinned, that's why we see here Yehudah still walks with Elohim, because Yahushua, who came from Yehudah genetically, has never sinned, neither will ever sin, because he already resurrected perfect. So Yehudah still walks with Elohim. On the other hand, this that is saying here is just like what it says with Hanok or Enoch. Enoch walked with Elohim and Elohim took him without dying. So Messiah, Yahweh, is telling us here that the many have followed the apostasy. Ephraim, Israel, represent both the many, has encircled the Almighty with lies. They have rebelled, and when we come and tell them that they are following a lie, they get mad at us. So then it says, but Yahudah still walks with Elohim, meaning the few, like I have explained many times already. When he talks about Israel and Yahudah in the same sentence, it is talking about the many and the few, respectively. So, but Yahudah still walks with Elohim, even with the set apart one who is faithful. Even with the set apart one who is faithful. So it's saying, but Yahudah still walks with Elohim, even with the Messiah, who never sinned. Because the only way that we can walk with the true Elohim is through Messiah, the Son who he sent. So, but Yahudah, also the few, still walks with Elohim, even with Messiah, the set apart one, who is faithful. Now, Hosea 12:9, but I am Yahweh your Elohim, ever since the land of Egypt. I will again make you dwell in tents, as in the days of the appointed feasts. This is such an important verse. It's saying so much that we need to understand, and that it is not being taught in Christian churches, and it is a shame. Because it's telling us several things, and I'm gonna see just something in the Hebrew. In the Hebrew is verse 10. So it says, Ve'anochi Yahweh, and I am Yahweh, Eloheicha, your Elohei, your mighty one, from the land of Mizraim, or ever since the land of Mizraim, of Egypt. It doesn't mention the word Sukkot, literally. It's not there, but it's making reference to it. So in English it says, but I am Yahweh your Elohei, ever since the land of Egypt. Ever since the land of Egypt. So the Almighty tells us about the first Exodus. Makes reference to the first Exodus to put our mind in that moment. Ever since the land of Egypt. Remember that when Yahweh appeared to Moshe, he said, Eyeh asher eyeh. I am. Well, there are several ways to translate it, but the way that they translate it most commonly is, I am that I am. I will be that which I will be. Because it can be translated as in future tense or present. I am that which I will be. The fact that in Hebrew is Eyeh asher eyeh. Asher is as that which. So Eyeh is I am. So I am that which I am. I will be that which I will be. Eyeh asher eyeh. Yahweh is making reference to that moment because he's saying ever since the land of Egypt. When Yahweh said to Moshe, Eyeh asher eyeh, he later, a couple verses down the line, he said to Moshe, this you will tell the people of Israel. Eyeh, Yahweh, in that case, in third person, send me. Meaning Yahweh was telling Moshe about the first and the second coming, about the first and the second Exodus. Eyeh, first, asher eyeh, second. Moshe, because Moshe is the leader, he needed to know, and he represents the second coming, the witness like Moshe, who is being represented here. And Yahweh is making us remember that second Eyeh, because the second Exodus is about to happen. So Eyeh asher eyeh, but tell the people only the first Eyeh, because the people do not need to know that there will be another Exodus, because it will happen along the line after many other things in the end times. So it was not necessary for the people to know, and it would bring them down if they were to know that they were just getting out of slavery and they were going to enter it again. So the Father told Moshe, Eyeh asher eyeh, but to the people only tell them the first Eyeh, because they don't need to know yet. Now we see here that the Almighty is basically making us remember that second Eyeh, that second Exodus that is about to happen. But I am Yahweh your Elohim. Ever since the land of Egypt, I will again, yeah. And it's so important to understand that he is saying it, I will again make you dwell in tents. When did the people of Yahweh dwell in tents? When they got out of Egypt. So he's saying, remember Egypt? The people got out and lived in tents? Well, I'm going to make you do that again. You're going to have to do that again. And that is talking about the moment when the abomination of desolation appears in the world and Messiah said, run to the mountains. That moment when the congregation will run to the mountains, they will have to live in tents for just a few days. Not 40 years, not even 3 years and a half, for just a few days. Basically, what the Feast of Sukkot lasts. Sukkot are basically tents, but made with branch of trees, with branches. So with the branches from the trees, they would build little houses to work as the tents where they would be during Sukkot, the 7 days. So the fact that Israel got out of Egypt on a 15th of the first month of the Hebrew calendar. However, they were in Egypt in confusion, in slavery. So Yahweh was the one that told them, yo, this is the first month of the year. But to them, at that time, it was the 7th. So in the mindset of the Israelim, when they were getting out, before they were told that that was the first month, they thought in their minds that they were getting out on the 7th month, the 15th day. So the 15th day of the 7th month in their mind, they got out of Egypt. Then the Almighty reveals, no, that is the first month. However, the Almighty also tells us in Leviticus 23 that we were to celebrate on the 7th month, on the 15th day, a feast called Sukkot. Because when the people got out of Egypt, they lived in Sukkot, in tents. So that's why we need to have that feast. However, it's in the 7th month, but they got out in the 1st month, even though in their minds was the 7th. So there is a connection. The Almighty is telling us that the true Exodus, the second Exodus, will happen in the 7th month, called Sukkot, during the feast of Sukkot, the 15th day. That's why when Israel came out of Egypt, the first land that they went to was called Sukkot, which is amazing. So they came out during the feast of Matzot, 15 of Aviv, first month. However, before the Messiah revealed that, or the Father revealed that, they thought they were in the 7th month, the 15th. And Yahweh said that in the real 7th month, on the 15th, we were to celebrate Sukkot, which is the name of the land that they visited first after coming out of Egypt during the first Exodus. So the Almighty is telling us through all this that the second Exodus will happen during Sukkot. That's why he's telling us here also, I will again make you dwell in tents during Sukkot. He will make people come out of their houses, jobs, and go and live in tents once again, as they did during the first Exodus. And then it tells us something to understand what I just explained. As in the days of the appointed feast. What is the appointed feast in which people need to go and live in tents? Sukkot. So Yahweh is telling us, as in the days of Sukkot. He's not saying on the day, because Sukkot is the only feast with matzot, which are mirror images in the two columns in which we can separate the year. 6 months, 6 months. The first and the 7th are mirroring each other. So the 15th of the first month is as the 15th of the 7th month. And in the 15th of the first month and in the 15th of the 7th month starts a feast of 7 days. So there are two feasts that represent each other that last 7 days. So that's why it says, as in the days, which are 7, of the appointed feast, one feast, Sukkot, the one in which people had to go and dwell in tents. This is amazing because the Father is telling us the second Exodus will happen during Sukkot. That's why it's so important to keep the appointed feast, but not only to keep the appointed feast, but according to the true calendar. Because if we follow the true calendar and follow the feasts, we are going to be more than prepared for that day. Blessed be the Father that set it up that way, of course. So he says, as in the days of the appointed feast, I have also spoken by the prophets. I have multiplied visions. And I have I have also spoken by the prophets and have multiplied visions. I have given symbols through the witness of the prophets. Oh, that's amazing. I have given symbols, meaning what I have just said. I have given reflection, mirrors, prophetic signs. I have given symbols through the witness of the prophets. All that which we read through the prophets is in order for us to take it as symbols and understand what will happen at the end. Now let me go to the book of the prophet Amos, or Amos, chapter 9, verse 13. It says, behold, the days are coming, says Yahweh, when the plowman shall overtake the reaper. The plowman shall overtake the reaper. So, as Messiah also said in one case, one is the one who sows the seed, and another one, the one that harvests or reaps. So when the plowman shall overtake the reaper, when the first will become the last, when the first and the last will become one. When the plowman shall overtake the reaper and the treader of grapes, him who sows seed. The harvest that we see in Revelation 14. First the wheat, the few, and then the grapes, which are many. When the plowman shall overtake the reaper, the first harvest of chapter 14, verse 14. And the treader of grapes, him who sows seed. The second harvest of the grapes. The mountains shall drip with sweet wine, because of the second harvest of grapes, and all the hills shall flow with it. I will bring back the captives of my people Israel. I will bring back, second Exodus, the captives of my people Israel. Those who have been captive by false doctrines, by physical slavery, by mental slavery, by spiritual slavery, by sin, etc. I will bring back the captives of my people Israel. They shall build the waste cities and inhabit them. They shall plant vineyards and drink wine from them. They shall also make gardens and eat fruit from them. I will plant them in their land. I will plant them in their land. He is the one that will put us there. Not the European Union, not David Rothschild, Yahweh. I will plant them in their land. And of course, Yahweh can do it through a man. But the ones that I just mentioned are basically representations of the beast. So, no. I will plant them in their land, and no longer shall they be pulled up. No longer shall they be pulled up. So, all the destruction that is about to happen in Israel and Jerusalem, and that's why there's so many people around waiting to destroy it. And it will be destroyed, as the Messiah said it, as the scripture tells us. That destruction will basically be them being pulled up. And we are about to see it. But the Father is saying that once we enter, once the real Israel enters that land, because he will put us there, never will anybody take us out. So the fact that all that is going on right there is happening and will get worse is a confirmation that this second Exodus hasn't happened yet. I will plant them in their land, and no longer shall they be pulled up from the land I have given them, says Yahweh your Elohim. Ezekiel 36, verse 23 to 25. It says, and I will separate my great name. I will separate my great name. Meaning, he will separate himself, his name, from all the fake names, all the perversions, all the wrong titles that people call him. Yahweh saying, I will have to separate myself. I will have to come to earth, manifest myself, and preach the true doctrine in order to separate me. And I will separate my great name, which has been profane among the nations. Which has been profane among the nations in many ways. Those who have it and do not do his will are doing this. And those who change it for a false one are doing this. So which has been profane among the nations, which you have profaned in their midst. So it is because of the people that say that they believe in him. It's because of them that this is happening. Most people believe that this has to do with sinners who have nothing to do with the Father. However, the Father is saying, because of you not separating my name, is that my great name has been profaned among the nations. So he says, and I will separate my great name, which has been profaned among the nations, which you have profaned in their midst. And the nations shall know that I am Yahweh. And the nations shall know that I am Yahweh, says Yahweh Almighty, Yahweh Elohim, when I am set apart in you before their eyes. So when the Father does what he will do as he's prophesying with his people, the few and the many, then the rest of the nations will realize, oh yeah, they had the true Elohim. They had the true mighty one. Yahweh is the true Elohim. Therefore, mainly with the chosen few who will follow to the last moment the true doctrine. And they will be few in the middle of millions of people. And therefore, they're going to be seen as if they were wrong just for being few. Because most people think that if a congregation or a church has thousands of people, then that's a right doctrine and they are doing everything right because there's so many people in there. When according to scriptures, that is not a sign that they are doing right. So on the other hand, if a person sees a congregation with 10 people, 20 people, 50 people, they would say that is not a church, that is not a congregation, that's just a group. And they will not respect, well, I'm talking about those who don't understand this, of course, whatever the Father is doing through those people, in those people, and they do not understand what scripture tells us about the few. So they will see those people as if they were part of a sect, or if they were following a false doctrine. And we are seeing here, when I am set apart in you before their eyes. For I will take you from among the nations. I will take you from among the nations. Gather you out of all countries, and bring you into your own land. Then I will sprinkle clean water on you, Yahushua, the water of life, and you shall be clean, will be transformed through the water of life, the Messiah. I will cleanse you from all your filthiness and from all your idols. So Yahweh, through the true doctrine, will cleanse us, but through the transformation and the resurrection of the many, all the filthiness from all the idols of the people will be done, over with. Of Luke 17 says, I'm going to read from 22. Then he said to the disciples, the days will come when you will desire to see one of the days of the Son of Man, and you will not see it. The Messiah was telling them that they were going to die without seeing the second coming, the Son of Man. Among other things, there are many ways in which this can be interpreted. That is one of the easiest ones, I guess. And you will not see it. And they will say to you, look here or look there. Do not go after them or follow them. Because throughout those 2,000 years, many would appear saying that they are and will fool many. So Yahushua is telling the disciples, do not go after them or follow them. Here's a verse that is very problematic. Verse 24 of Luke 17. This is how it's translated in most scriptures. Well, most Bibles. For as the lightning that flashes out of one part under heaven shines to the other part under heaven, so also the Son of Man will be in his day. This verse was translated in this way to twist everything about this happening. As if we remember, in the same book of Luke, Yahweh told us, Messiah told us, that he saw Satan falling as lightning. In Luke 10:18, Messiah Yahushua said, and he said to them, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. So if we go to this verse and read it again, Messiah is saying, for as the lightning, so also the Son of Man will be in his day. That is very weird, because why would Messiah say that Satan fell like lightning and then say that the Son of Man will come like lightning? There's something wrong about this. So if we realize that by knowing the scriptures, we can come logically to the true interpretation by just reading it, as I will do in just a moment. But just to make it clearer and confirm what I'm just saying, if we go to the concordance and look the word that says lightning, we can see what word should be there actually, instead of the one that they chose to confuse people. And I say that they did it to confuse people because I don't see any other reason why. Whether they did it because Lucifer was guiding their hand, their judgment, or because they did it on purpose. But the enemy, of course, had to do with this wrong translation, as some other ones that we will see. The word in the Greek, astrape. Astrape is the word in Greek that they translated as lightning. However, when we see the translation, it says a gleam of a lamp, meaning light. It says glare, bright, shining. And it comes from another word that means to lighten, to shine, shine. So it is a light that shines, not just a lightning, because Satan fell like lightning. And when lightning falls, its light can be seen going to all, like everywhere in an instant, right? So when we see lightning fall, we see the light that goes everywhere from that center in which the lightning fell. And as we know, lightning is just a second. So Yahushua said that Satan fell like lightning, and they translated that the second coming is like lightning. However, when we go and see the word in the concordance, it is not lightning, it is a bright light. The shining, not the movie, like the shine of the Son of Justice. That is why, like I said, if we read the verse carefully, we can come to the truth, even though they are trying to confuse us. It says, for as the lightning, or for as the light that flashes out of one part under heaven shines to the other part under heaven. Like I said, when lightning falls, its light shines everywhere in a moment. Everywhere. Goes to the right, to the left, to the front, to the back. All around, its light expands. But it's saying that Messiah is talking about a light that appears shining on one side of the sky and shines all the way to the other side of the sky. That, of course, is the light of the sun. If we go and check, as we are going to see in a few moments, in Matthew 24 and Mark 13, Yahushua says, as the light that shines from the east and goes to the west. So mentions literally east and west, the movement that the sun does. And not only that, as we know, Malachi 4:2 says that the second coming is as the Son of Justice, as the Son. Not just the Son of the Father, but as the Son that gives light to the world. So it says, for as the light that flashes out of one part east under heaven shines to the other part west under heaven, so also the Son of Man will be in his day. It is in a day that we see the sun. And it takes 12 hours. And then it takes 12 other hours of darkness in order for the sun to come back. So 24 hours is a day, as we know. Separated by 12 hours of light, 12 hours of night. Why is that? Among other things, because the end times will be 7 years, as 3 years and a half and 3 years and a half. 3 years and a half, the first 3 years and a half represent 12 hours of light. The second 3 years and a half represent 12 hours of darkness. That's why in the first 3 years and a half, the two witnesses will preach. The Son of Justice will give the true doctrine. But those who are blind won't be able to see it, because even if there's light, a blind person will be in the darkness. So those who are following the blind Elohim will not see the Messiah and will think that he's a thief. That's why he said that he would come as a thief in the night, being the thief, the true thief, the false Messiah. So they will call the real Messiah a false Messiah, and they will see the false Messiah as the true Messiah. So 3 years and a half of the true doctrine being preached in the world. 3 years and a half after the death of the two witnesses, darkness. The last plagues that we see, the bowls of wrath during the last 3 years and a half. So 3 years and a half, 3 years and a half, 12 hours of light, 12 hours of darkness. The Son of Man is coming during those 7 days and will preach during the 3 years and a half that there will be light, because he will be the sun, the light of the world. By having Yahushua in him, he becomes the lamp, he becomes the sun. So for as the light that flashes out of one part under heaven east shines to the other part under heaven west, which is the sun of the light of the sun, so also the Son of Man will be in his day. A day is a long period. It is not saying so the Son of Man will be in his moment, in his instant, like the lightning. So the wrong translations are guiding people to accept the false Messiah, because the false Messiah, the abomination of desolation, will appear in this world once Lucifer is thrown out of heaven in Revelation 12. And just to explain this real quick, in Revelation 12 it says something about the dragon. When the dragon falls, it says, now when the dragon saw that he had been cast to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male. Verse 12. Therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea. For the devil, the accuser, has come down to you having great wrath, because he knows that he has a short time. A short time, like lightning. He's gonna come to earth at this moment. He knows that he only has 3 years and a half. He has been living in another dimension, in which 1,000 years is what a day lasts. In the second heaven, 1,000 human years is just 1 day. Now he's gonna enter a dimension in which he's only gonna live for 3 years and a half, human years. So it's such a short span of time for him that he's gonna go crazy with wrath. So he's gonna come down, and right away, like lightning, he's gonna fall from heaven enter the body of the false Messiah and say to the world that he is and that everybody should worship him. So his manifestation will be quick, will be like lightning. Everybody will see the moment. That moment everybody will know. It will be everywhere in the news, Facebook, everything that may whatever be working at that time as social networks. So everybody will realize that in a moment because he falls like lightning. He knows that he has short time, so he's gonna take advantage of each and every moment of that time that he will receive to be the God of this world, as people will call him. So in this case, we see that the Son of Man comes for a day, meaning he has time. As the sun, like at 5 in the morning, so it's still dark. When it's about 6, you can already see light, but you cannot see the sun yet in some cases. And then after some time of light, you can see the sun. But it is until 12 noon that the place will be the brightest. So that is what Messiah is saying. When somebody tells you, hey, he's here, come quick, don't run, because the coming of the Son of Man will take a day, meaning will take time. Like the sun that appears, you will start hearing about his doctrine. Like you will start seeing the light, but will not see the sun yet. Then you will see the person. And even so, he will preach for 3 years and a half. So some people will see him one day, then see him months later. They will not realize that that is Messiah, because they think that Messiah will just come and go in a moment. But that's not what he is saying. And I hope that's clear. It's very important. So also the Son of Man will be in his day, the 12 hours of light, the first 3 years and a half. But first, he must suffer many things and be rejected by this generation. Like I always explain, of course, Yahushua was talking about that generation of that time that would kill him days later after he said this. But the way that the world is, the more time passes, the worse it gets. So when Messiah was talking about this, when he was speaking these words, that was the worst generation of the time. So when he said this generation, he meant that generation. However, now that we read it in our time, in which the worst generation of all times is living, this fits our time, and therefore when we read it also means this moment. Yahushua is saying, but the Son of Man, when he appears for 3 years and a half, don't think that he will just take the crown, the throne, set up peace and everything will be fine. No, he will have to be rejected and killed by this generation after having his day, his 3 years and a half of preaching. Hope that's clear. But first he must suffer many things and be rejected by this generation. And as it was in the days of Noah, what did Noah do? He preached about the end for a long time, like the second coming. He will preach about the true doctrine in the end times for a while, 3 years and a half. People will not accept him, just as they did not accept Noah. And as it was in the days of Noah, so it will be also in the days of the Son of Man. The Son of Man as Noah. They ate, they drank, they married wives, they were given in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark and the flood came and destroyed them all. Until the moment that Noah died and resurrected and entered the prepared place with the chosen few. In that moment, the last plagues, the 7 bowls of wrath, came to the world and destroyed everybody that did not believe in his doctrine. They ate, they drank, they married wives, they were given in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark and the flood came and destroyed them all. Likewise, this is so important, likewise, as it was also in the days of Lot. What do you remember about the days of Lot? It was Sodom and Gomorrah. They were sinning a lot, just like nowadays. And Lot was in his house when 2 angels, came to his house to tell him that everything was going to be destroyed and he had to get out as soon as possible. What does that represent? The 2 witnesses, like Moshe and Eliyahu, Moshe and Aaron, come into the congregation of the chosen few to tell them, Lot representing the chosen few, because the chosen few are mentioned as males who have never been with women in Revelation 14. Even though, like I have said, it represents the head of the house. So it's not only males, but the way that the few are represented in scriptures is as males, while the many as female. When it comes to few and many, male and female. Because the few are the body of Messiah, and Messiah, body wise, is a male. So when the two witnesses came to Lot represents when the two witnesses will come to the congregation of the world, of those who believe in Messiah. But from those who believe in Messiah, there are some who believe the true doctrine and some who don't believe the true doctrine because they believe in a man, they believe in a doctrine of men, commandments of men, whatever it may be. So Lot is the one that listens and pays attention and does what he has to do. The few, male, the body of Messiah. I'm going to make that clear because body is female. And the female, the wife of Lot, represents the many that do not listen. So in this case, Lot would be the head of his wife, which would be the body. So just like I have said, the few will be kings and priests, while the many will be the people. That is, the few, the head, that's why the few are male, and the many, the body, that's why the many are female. So Lot and his wife, the few and the many. The two witnesses come to tell them that fire is about to come. The wife did not believe it that much. He did, Lot did, like the few. So we see that Lot had to get out of Sodom and Gomorrah. He had to actually walk out, run away. Like the few will have to do, those who obey. But the wife did not believe, so she turned back, she looked back, and she died. That represents the many that will be resurrected because they will be justified through their belief in their heart, but because they did not confess, they did not have the true doctrine, as Lot, represented by that story, they will turn into salt. They will have to die and then be resurrected. So that's why the Messiah is saying this, likewise as it was it also in the days of Lot. They ate, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they built, as with the times of Noah, meaning that people did not know. People kept living as nothing was going to change, as everything was normal. We need to understand this because people believe for some reason that the trumpets will sound and everybody will hear it and certain things will happen and everybody will know that is the Almighty. That is not the case. Scientists are going to keep saying, oh, is global warming, is this, is that, oh, that is normal, no, that is natural, don't worry about it, oh, that earthquake was supposed to happen a long time ago, etc., etc., so that people believe that it is all normal and they continue. Like it says here, they planted, they built, they bought, they sold, they drank, they ate. They kept living their life as nothing was going to happen. So the two witnesses will preach and preach and preach. And people will say they're crazy, they're crazy, they're crazy. But on the day that Lot went out of Sodom, went out. It doesn't say, but on the day that Yahweh wanted it, he disappeared Lot from it. From Sodom. No, it says Lot had to go out. He had to believe and act, because faith without works is death. Is dead. And is death also. So faith without works is dead. That faith would be a lie, an illusion. If a person says that he or she believes, however doesn't act according to that belief, that faith doesn't exist. It's just an illusion. She has faith in faith, or he has faith in faith, and faith by itself doesn't save. It's faith in the Savior that will save us. That's why it's not Yeshua, it's Yahushua. Yahweh saves, not just salvation, because salvation by itself doesn't save either. So likewise as it was also in the days of Lot, they ate, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they built. But on the day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. So when the chosen few see the abomination of desolation in the place where it should not be, they go out like Messiah said that they should, like Lot did. And once they go out of this world, the world will start to burn. Even though it's already burning in some places, but this time will be a lot worse. Even so will it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. So the Son of Man will come, will manifest as one of the witnesses that comes to talk to Lot, but he will be revealed until the earth is destroyed. When everything is happening, then they will say, oh, he was right. Oh, that was him. Oh, he was saying the truth. So, even so, it will be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. In that day, this is so important. I already explained this, I believe, thoroughly in the study about the rapture. But since we're talking about the Exodus, it's connected, so I'm going to have to explain it again. I'll go quick because we still have some to read. So, in that day, what day? The day that fire will rain from heaven, the day that the 7 last plagues of the book of Revelation will manifest, the 7 bowls of wrath. That day when the great tribulation is starting, which will concentrate in 30 days, as we see in Hosea 5:7. In that day, he who is on the housetop and his goods are in the house, let him not come down to take them away. Because it would, like we just said, the abomination of desolation will appear like lightning. Satan will appear like lightning. So whenever you realize that he already appeared in the world, you should just go. Because just going back to pick up something could mean death, could mean losing your life. So when the abomination of desolation is in the world, meaning when the world is saying, oh, the Messiah is with us, or Christ as they will say, in that moment, run. Let him not come down to take them away. And likewise, the one who is in the field, if somebody's working in the field, let him not turn back. Don't go to the office. Don't turn back. Remember Lot's wife. What happened to Lot's wife? I already explained it. She looked back. She wanted to go back and she died. So when the abomination of desolation appears in the world, we should not turn back. We gotta go away from the city. Remember Lot's wife. Whoever seeks to save his life will lose it. Many people will try to save their life, meaning everything they had in this world. And they will lose life because trying to save what is temporal, what they have in this world. And whoever loses his life will preserve it. Whoever just loses everything, gives everything away, meaning when it's time to go, he's not thinking about the car, about material riches. He's just thinking about, yo, I'm gonna go meet the Messiah. That is the thought that the congregation must have. They need to understand that they would be days away from being one with Yahweh. So whatever material possession, whatever position they had in this world means nothing next to what they will receive in just a few hours after this moment. But there are some people who don't understand that, don't see that, because they don't really have faith, true faith. So they will turn back. They will say, no, I don't think this will happen. I don't think this is true. I'm just going to go home. I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose that. I don't want nobody entering in my house and taking my stuff. So I'm not going to go to the mountain, etc. So this is very important. And I hope you pay attention to this part, at least if you haven't paid attention to the rest, because this is the key to understand this chapter and other chapters that Christians for some reason twist so much in order to preach about the rapture. Verse 31, Yahushua is talking about one person that obeys and just goes away, like Lot. Then it says, whoever seeks to save his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life will preserve it. This verse 33 is connecting the person that obeys with the person that claims to obey but doesn't obey. Basically, Lot and Lot's wife. That's why it says whoever seeks to save his life will lose it, like Lot's wife. And whoever loses his life will preserve it, like Lot, who lost everything that he had in Sodom, but he didn't care. He just went out. He listened. So verse 33 is connecting he who obeys, Lot, who already left the house or his job without turning back, with the one who is like Lot's wife and will have to die thinking that he is going to be saved. Like those who believe in the rapture, and they think they will be raptured wherever they are at, even before the tribulation happens. So they want to save their lives that way, not by obeying, but by believing in a certain doctrine that a man made up, twisting verses of scriptures, using a little bit of truth to say a bunch of lies. Like we were reading Jeremiah yesterday, actually, in Jeremiah 23, if you want to read it later. So verse 34 is talking about those who claim to obey but they don't obey, the many. The few already left to the mountain, for the mountains. They already left, they obey, like Lot. But the many are like Lot's wife. So now the Messiah, after telling us about those who obey, the few who already left, now he's going to tell us about those who are like Lot's wife, the many. And it is incredible that Christians claim to be these. So they are right in that. They are right because they are the many. So they are right by using this verse to claim that they are these. However, they don't understand what will happen to these people, those who are like Lot's wife. I tell you, in that night, what night? The night that the abomination of desolation appeared and people left their houses, those who obeyed. That's what he's referring. In that night in which people left their houses, if they were obeying, there will be two men in one bed. Meaning, and here the word man is added. That's why some people are talking about, they say that this proves that homosexuality is not wrong because there were two men in one bed. Like just the fact that two men are in one bed meant that it was something sexual. However, like I said, even if that was the case, it has no logic if you have a pure mind. But if you check, the word man is not there. It's just saying, in that night there will be two in one bed. Two in one bed. So there were three, because one left for the mountains. So now there will be two. I repeat, there were three people. One left. So now we are left with two. And Yahushua is about to tell us about those who are like Lot's wife. I tell you, in that night there will be two men in one bed. The one will be taken and the other will be left. Two women will be grinding together. Once again, the word women is not here, but they added so that we understand that it's talking about people. Two women will be grinding together. The one will be taken and the other left. So Christians use this and say, you see, here's the rapture. The one will be taken, will be taken from this world. So they say that they are the ones that are taken. They are right about that. However, they don't understand what will happen after it. Or they don't understand what rapture actually means. Being kidnapped. Being taken by force. Two women will be grinding together. The one will be taken and the other left. Two men will be in the field. The one will be taken and the other left. And they, the disciples, answered and said to him, where, sovereign? Where, Adon? So the disciples understand that the Messiah spoke about those who obeyed. They already left. They're fine. So the disciples do not worry about those who obey, because they would be those who obey. Now they are wondering about those who are taken, because those who are left are basically the opposite of those who obeyed. So those who are left are those who will be thrown in the lake of fire eventually, those who receive the mark of the beast. So the disciples, I repeat, are asking about those who are taken, because those are the only ones that did not obey, but still were taken for something. So they want to know, because actually basically from my experience, it seems like the doctrine of the few and the many is a mystery, because it is not taught by most. But it is very clear when we actually understand it and see in the scriptures. So the fact that it's a mystery is the reason why the disciples had to ask, who are they? Because those who left are your people. Those who stayed are Satan's people. Who are those who are taken? Where are they taken to? So the disciples answered and said to him, Where, Adon? So he said to them, Messiah said, talking about those who are taken. And I will read it like it's here. Then I will show something from the concordance. And still, I repeat, even though the translation is very wrong, by using logic, reason, and of course the spirit of truth, we can come to the truth of this verse. But when I was in Christianity, I would read it and understand it like they would teach it, having to do with rapture. So I will tell you what I've heard when I was a Christian from Christian doctrines. But still, when I would hear it, I would be like, okay, yeah, that's what it is because you tell me it is. But still, when I would read it alone, there was a voice that would tell me, oh, that is wrong. There's something wrong about it for many reasons. And by using logic, blessed be the Most High, he showed me that the doctrine in Christianity was completely wrong, that I was wrong, and I had to look deeper. And that's when I went to the concordance, and what I believed from using logic and reason, I came to confirm by using the concordance. So, this is the answer according to the translations that most people have. So he said to them, wherever the body is, there the eagles will be gathered together. Wherever the body is, there the eagles will be gathered together. So when we read this, having the mindset of a Christian, and having heard the doctrine that theologians teach regarding rapture and all of that, I would read this back in the day when I was wrong, in this case, in this doctrine, as wherever the body is, oh, the body of the Messiah, the congregation, because the body of Messiah is the congregation. So I would understand this as, okay, where the body of Messiah, where the congregation is, there the eagles will be gathered. So I would go like, and even going higher or deeper than most Christian doctrines, I would try to give sense to this verse with the true symbolism, as I am doing right now. The body of Messiah is the congregation, yeah. But it is not saying that it's the body of Messiah. It's just saying body. There the eagles will be gathered together. In Revelation 12, we see that the congregation receives the great wings of the eagle, or the wings of the great eagle. So the chosen few would be like eagles, and they will be gathered as the body of Messiah. So that's what I would get from this verse, right? That's what I would translate from this verse, because of the way it is written. But I repeat, because of the fact that there are some who obey, and they are asking about those who didn't obey, but they were taken. I was like, that doesn't make that much sense, because they didn't obey. And it doesn't say body of Messiah. And eagles do not gather together, or it's not common to see that around a body. So I started doing more study and I came to Matthew 24, and I'm gonna read just this same verse in Matthew 24, and I may read a little bit more of Matthew 24 afterwards, but I just want to read this verse in Matthew 24 so that you see that by reading the same story from another account, from one of the apostles, in this case Matthew, we get to understand something deeper. From verse 23, Matthew 24. Then if anyone says to you, look, here is the Christ, here is the Messiah, or there, do not believe it, because he will not appear like that. He will appear as a preacher, as a thief in the night, as a Gentile, from the nations, etc., etc. There are many things to say there in order for us to understand that he will not appear like everybody's expecting, and like the false Messiah will appear, moment in which everybody will say he's here or he's there, so let's go to meet him. Then if anyone says to you, look, here is the Messiah, or there, do not believe it. For false messiahs and false prophets will rise and show great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. Why would the elect be so close to be fooled, to be deceived by a false messiah and a false prophet, unless the true messiah and the true prophet would appear on earth, the two witnesses, witness like Moshe, witness like Eliyahu, his prophet? If the second coming were to happen as Christians believe it will happen, it would not be necessary for Messiah to say any of this. He will just say, don't believe anybody, because I will just appear in the heavens, or you just disappear from earth. So don't worry about it. The fact that Messiah is saying, don't be fooled, don't be deceived, be careful, is because he will appear again, but as a thief in the night. So people must be careful not to fall for an actual thief, not to fall for the real thief, not to fall for somebody that will be out there saying, I am, because Messiah himself was not like that, and therefore we need to understand that the two witnesses will not be like that. For instance, I received an email yesterday from a person, I don't know, I guess he's seen my studies or something. He sent me an email telling me to please propagate the information that he was sending me among the children of Israel. That's what he was saying. And then he closed the email with, because I, the branch, have come to open the way for the Messiah Eliyahu. So, first of all, he was claiming to be the branch of David. He was claiming to be Messiah, basically. The person who sent me the email. And this is not the first time that has happened. Many witnesses have written to me many times in the past. But not only is he saying to be the branch, then he says that Messiah is Eliyahu. So even in what he believes, his doctrine is completely wrong. Of course, if he believes something that is a lie. So this will happen a lot. And it is not hard to find people on YouTube or around the world that will claim to be Messiah, claim to be Eliyahu, claim to be the two witnesses, etc. I have seen couples claim, like marriages, claim to be the two witnesses. I have seen one person claim to be both. I have seen one claim to be Eliyahu, etc., etc. So, if the two witnesses were not to appear preaching on earth, Messiah would not have had to say this at all, or would have said it different. For false messiahs and false prophets will rise and show great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. If possible, that means it's not possible. For some reason, there are many people that read that it's possible, even though it's saying if possible, meaning it's not possible. Blessed be the Most High. See, I have told you beforehand. I have told you beforehand. Yahushua was saying, I have told you beforehand that there will come false messiahs and false prophets, because they will then eventually the real Messiah and the real prophet will appear. So be careful not to fall for the false ones, because they will make great signs and wonders. Therefore, if they say to you, look, he is in the desert, meaning Messiah, do not go out. Or look, he is in the inner rooms, do not believe it. So we should not expect the false Messiah to only be in a temple made of stones. Many people believe that when the Antichrist comes and enters the temple, that will be the abomination of desolation in the place where it should not be. But that is not true. Like I said, the actual temple of Yahweh is the human body. So once Satan enters a human body, that will be the abomination of desolation in the place where it should not be, in this dimension within a human body, which is the temple of Yahweh the Creator. Because we were made in the image and likeness of Yahweh. That's why Satan, who wants to be like him, wants to be in the shape of a man. He wants to be in a human body. So when that happens, he will appear all over the world, and most likely, as some say, technology will be used, holograms will be used, so that his image will appear all over the world in the sky. They have the technology to do that already. So it is not like he's going to be in the temple and everybody's going to say, oh, the Messiah is in Jerusalem. Like I said, when the destruction starts, he will start from there, yeah. But when he reveals himself to the world, he will do it all over the place, because he's trying to copy what the scripture says in a literal sense. He wants to be seen by the whole world, because it is written that when Messiah appears, every eye shall see him. But he's trying to fulfill it before the time. He wants to fulfill it himself with technology in a physical way. So that's why it says, then if anyone says to you, look, here is the Messiah, or there, do not believe it. For false messiahs and false prophets, I have already read that. See, I have told you beforehand, verse 26. Therefore, if they say to you, look, he is in the desert, do not go out. Or look, he is in the inner rooms, do not believe it. No matter where they say that he is not, so don't go. For as the light, once again it says lightning, but we already established that it is light, a shine. For as the light comes from the east and flashes to the west, east and west. In Matthew says it clearly, east and west. Not just one place to the other, east and west. That is the movement that the sun does. So once again, we can understand by reading Matthew next to Luke that he's talking about the light of the sun, even if we didn't have a concordance. So also will be the coming of the Son of Man. So also will the coming of the Son of Man be. So the Son of Man will come as the Son of justice, Son of righteousness. For, and this is the answer, in Luke, verse 37, Luke 17, the disciples answer and said to him, where, Adon, where will those who are taken be taken? So he said to them, wherever the body is, there the eagles will be gathered together. Okay, if we were just to read this, we can be confused by the body of Messiah, which is the congregation, and the eagles, whose wings will be given to the congregation. But if we go to Matthew and read the same answer given through Matthew, the translators decided to add a different word instead of body. It says, verse 28, for wherever the carcass is, so it's not just a body, it's a dead body. So if it's a dead body, it cannot be at all ever the body of Messiah, because Messiah is life and it is him who gives us eternal life. So if it's a carcass, it's not the body of Messiah. It's simply the body of the person that was taken. He will die and become a carcass. His body will become a carcass. So when the disciples asked Messiah, where will they be taken? Yahushua actually answered, where the dead body is, where the carcass is, there the eagles will be gathered together. But with this verse, we can see easier what it means, because eagles do not gather together around a dead body. The birds that do that are the vultures. Vultures, they gather around a dead body to eat it. If we go to the concordance in this verse, the concordance confirms that fact. The fact that is not talking about eagles. Even though the translators, for some wrong, and I dare to say even stupid reason, decided to add eagles, and I use that word because it actually confuses people and obscures the truth. They chose to use eagles even though it is clear that it should be vultures. So the word is aetos in Greek. It says an eagle, but then it says, column, since eagles do not usually go in quest of carrion, this may be a vulture that resembles an eagle. So it is a vulture that resembles an eagle because the word is used in the context of dead bodies mostly, but also had to do with the eagle that represented Rome, which is interesting because it is Rome that is going to kill the many. It is the authority of the empire of the New World Order, which is basically Rome 2.0. That's why the two legs of iron, which are Rome in the statue that the king of Babylon saw, the 2 feet were a mix of clay and iron. So it is interesting. Rome is the one that is going to kill the many. And Messiah said, where you see the dead body, there the animal that represents Rome will gather around. The actual bird that gathers around a dead body is the vulture. So it's a vulture that looks like an eagle. Just like Rome, no matter if they use an eagle, they actually act like a vulture, because they have authority over the world of death. Their empire has to do with death. So like I said, by reading Matthew and reading Luke, we can understand that verse. And it is clear that those who are taken will be taken to die. Those who leave, when Messiah said, they will be saved days after. So the disciples were not worried about them. They were worried about those who are taken. And Messiah said, yeah, they are going to die. Then they will be resurrected and according to the heart and their faith, justified or condemned, depending. And those who are left will receive the mark of the beast and thrown in the lake of fire. So if we jump to verse 36 of Matthew 24, says, but of that day and hour no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, but my Father only. This verse can be interpreted in many ways. Many connected, and it's funny that I say many, because mainly they do it in Christianity, with the Feast of Trumpets. Because in the wrong, and may I repeat, in the wrong calendar, since the Jewish people would follow the moon and Saturn being focused in the darkness, being focused on the darkness, the first day of the 7th month, which is Yom Teruah, the Feast of Trumpets, since it would happen on the first day of the first month, and according to the Jewish calendar, the first month would happen when the new moon appears in the sky, they would need 2 witnesses to announce the moon. So that feast, that day, is the day that no one knows, only the Father. So he would send 2 witnesses in order to tell the people, now is the time, now is the feast. So that's why, but on that day and that hour no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, but my Father only. That is one interpretation. However, is based on something that Jewish people do wrong because of doctrines of men. But it is perfect because Yahweh will send 2 witnesses who will be captured on the Feast of Trumpets, on Yom Teruah. They will be captured. And once they are captured, that will be the announcement to the chosen few who follow the doctrine of the 2 witnesses that everything is about to happen. So in a day that no one knows, according to, and this is interesting because if everybody follows a wrong calendar, as most people do, if everybody follows a wrong calendar, nobody knows when the true Feast of Trumpets would happen. So in a day that no one knows, because everybody's following a wrong calendar, they will be captured in Yom Teruah. But the real Yom Teruah, not the Yom Teruah of the Christians or the Messianic or the Jewish people. The real Yom Teruah, a day that no one knows because they are following wrong calendars. So that is one way of seeing it. And the other one is that when a person would come with his father basically to meet his future wife, they will come to an agreement and they will basically get engaged. But after that, the father and the son would go away from the future wife, from the bride, for a year or 2 in order to build a house for the couple. After the house is built, the father, who is the one who has the resources to build a house and to tell his son when he can get his wife, because back in the day it wasn't exactly like today, in which people give a ring, but they would have to give basically gifts, and for those gifts sometimes they had to save or take some time in order to gather them. So the fact that Messiah came 2,000 years ago, he paid with his blood for his wife, the bride, the congregation, and he left. Now what he's saying is what they used to do in the culture, the Hebrew culture. The men would come most likely during the night with sounds of trumpet to catch the bride as a surprise in a day that she wasn't expecting, and take her to the house that he built for her. Take her away from the house of her father. So it represents Messiah came, paid for his bride, the congregation, with his blood. He went away, and he said, but of that day and hour no one knows. It is important also that even if we were to take it literal, it says of that day and hour no one knows. Therefore we can know the week, we can know the month, we can know the year. But many people use this verse to say no one can know when the end will happen. No one can know anything about the end. So don't study about the end. Don't study anything that has to do with end times, eschatology, the last days. But if we are going to take that verse literal as they do, then we can say that we can know the week, we can know the month, we can know the year, and that should be enough for the true congregation. But anyways, if we understand this with the symbolism that Messiah was also trying to give us, but of that day and hour no one knows. When the father will send his son to get his wife in order to take her, the congregation, to the wedding of the Lamb. But of that day and hour no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, not even his servants, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah were, we already read this in Luke, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days before the flood they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered the ark. Until the second coming, as Noah dies, resurrects, and gathers the congregation to take him to the prepared place. Yahushua said that he was going to the Father to prepare a place, as the groom goes to the father to prepare a house for the bride. And that's why the bride, when in Revelation 12 goes to the desert, to the wilderness, is going looking for the prepared place, meaning that house that Yahushua prepared for his bride. So, for as in the days before the flood they were eating, drinking, marrying, and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered the ark, and did not know until the flood came and took them all away. They are not going to know anything. They're not going to understand anything, and they're going to reject Noah, the Son of Man, until everything starts happening. They're going to realize it moments before they have to go through something like the Great Tribulation. And did not know until the flood came and took them all away, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. Then 2 men will be in the field, one will be taken and the other left. Just so you know, the Messiah had already talked in this chapter to the ones that had to leave, to the ones that listen, to the ones that obey. Matthew 24, and I'm going to do it real quick. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation, therefore, when you see the false Messiah spoken of by Daniel the prophet, this is important, because many people nowadays preach that the abomination of desolation is spoken by Daniel already happened. Why? Because in the book of Maccabees we read that the Greek emperor made a sacrifice of a pig to Zeus in the temple of Yahweh, and that was called the abomination of desolation. So many people say that was fulfilled already, not understanding, first of all, that if Yahushua is mentioning this right here about 150 years after the Greek Empire, is because what happened during that time with the Maccabees was a reflection a prophetical symbol for us to understand what would happen in the end times and how it would happen. The Greek emperor represents the beast, the world leader. And the pig represents the abomination of desolation, represents the false Messiah. The spirit of Satan, he who acts like he is pure, but in the interior he isn't, like the pig. The Elohim who has been worshipped by those who claim to believe in the Father but have not followed the real Messiah. So the pig being sacrificed in the temple represents when Satan is thrown out of heaven and will enter a body. So that's why Messiah is explaining this. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, Jewish people do not see Daniel as a prophet. One of the reasons why is because he prophesied the coming of Messiah 2,000 years ago, and he's dying and resurrecting. So they hate him for that. So they don't give him the honor of prophet. But Messiah, Yahushua, did call him a prophet. So that's why the book of Daniel is in the Ketuvim, in the writings, not in the prophets when it comes to the Tanakh. So Messiah said, therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of Daniel the prophet standing in the set apart place, everybody says right there, oh, is when the beast, the Antichrist, as they say it, enters the temple. We see here that Messiah says after that, whoever reads, let him understand. If the Messiah has to do this, has to say this, is because this cannot be understood in a simple way. This cannot be understood by the letter, by the flesh. It needs to be understood by the spirit. So that's why Yahushua said, whoever reads, let him understand. Whoever is reading this, let him understand what he is reading. Do not take it lightly. Also, whoever reads the entire scripture will be able to understand what the Messiah is talking about right here. As we know, the set apart place is the body of a human being. Like I said, the abomination is basically Satan entering a human body. So that's why when you see the abomination entering the set apart place, whoever reads, let him understand. Then let those who are in Yehudah flee to the mountains. When you see the abomination, when you see the false Messiah in the world, do not go after him like the world will do. Go the other direction. Flee to the mountains. Like we saw in the book of Luke, Yahushua did not say those who are in Yehudah. He said it in general because he's talking to every man no matter where they are. In Matthew, he's talking to the kings, the 144,000, who are Yehudah spiritually. Therefore, whoever is in Yehudah, whoever is part of the chosen few, whoever obeys, let those who are in Yehudah flee to the mountains. Like I said, it will happen literally first in Yehudah, but then it will go to all the nations of the world. The army of the false Messiah who will kill every person who doesn't worship him. So yeah, literally, if you are in Yehudah, you should run right away. But if you are in the spiritual Yehudah, you should run whenever you find out. So basically it will be right away, but my point is that if we were to talk about time, I dare to say that those who are outside of Yehudah will have a little bit more of time. But that doesn't mean that they should go back, because Messiah told us, when you realize it, just go, don't go back. Let him who is on the housetop not go down to take anything out of his house. And let him who is in the field not go back to get his clothes. But woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing babies in those days. Like I said previously. But look what it says. Then let those who are in Yehudah flee to the mountains. Here are the ones that obey, those that fled. And pray that your flight may not be in winter or on the Shabbat. Because we should not walk to the point of getting tired on a Shabbat. That would be working. And winter, actually the word in the concordance, it has nothing to do with the season of winter. It has to do with basically a lot of rain and thunder. So my point is, it can happen during winter, but the point that Yahushua is trying to make is that if there were a lot of rain and thunder and other things that happen in those situations, it would be hard for people to go to the mountains. So we should pray in order so that when the congregation has to leave to the mountains, they may not have to do it in a rough situation, in a rough environment. Also, the fact that if we wanted to see it as winter, it's interesting because Yahweh knows the time when it will happen. As we already read in the prophets, it will happen during one of the feasts, and that feast is the one when people would go and live in tents. That means Sukkot. So it will happen during Sukkot, close to winter. But it depends on where people are in the world, if it will be winter or not. So some will have to go during winter, some will have to go in summer, or whatever the season will be in their wherever they live. So the fact that Messiah says this here has to do, among other things, with the fact that this is not only going to happen in Yehuda, it's going to happen everywhere in the world. And that's why some will go out of their house when it's night, and some will go out of their house when it's day, because it will happen all over the world. Some parts will be day, some parts will be night. It says, verse 21, for then there will be great tribulation. Great tribulation. Until that moment, there was only tribulation. The first 3 years and a half, tribulation. But in this moment, when the abomination of desolation appears in the world, the great tribulation will start. And like I said, it will focus on 30 days, Hosea 5:7, when the many will die. So that's why Yahushua is saying the great tribulation will start when the false Messiah appears in the world. So whenever you realize that the false Messiah is in the world, go to the mountains. For then there will be great tribulation, such as has not been since the beginning of the world until this time. No, nor ever shall be. And unless those days were shortened, no flesh would be safe. But for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened. So, since Yahweh wants to save his chosen few, he will shorten the days so that they may not be lost. So going back to verse 36, but of that day and hour no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah were, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered the ark, and did not know until the flood came and took them away. So also will the coming of the Son of Man be. Verse 40. Then 2 men will be in the field. Like I said, there were 3, but one already left for the mountains. Then there will be 2. So it is not coincidental that Christians most likely will use Matthew 24 in order to talk about the rapture, because there is such a separation between those who obeyed and went to the mountains and those who are taken. There is such a separation within the text that they believe is something else, but if we follow what Messiah is saying, paying attention, we'll realize Yahushua is just following what he was saying previously. 1 left, now there are 2. Just like we read in Luke, and it's clearer in Luke. That's why I wanted to start with Luke. Then 2 will be in the field, 1 will be taken and the other left. 2 will be grinding at the mill, 1 will be taken and the other left. As we saw in Luke, it said 2 will be in bed, 1 will be taken and 1 will be left. This is interesting because here is not mentioning those who are in bed. Why? Because he was focusing in Yehuda geographically. So therefore, it's only talking about the day. One could say that it will be day in Yehuda, and therefore it will be night in the West America. Because in Luke, which is written for all men, and therefore Messiah said, just flee to the mountains, didn't say those who are in Yehuda. He just said, flee to the mountains when you see the abomination of desolation. In this case, in which he did say Yehuda, he doesn't mention anything about the night, about people being in bed. He only mentions people working. 2 men will be grinding at the mill, one will be taken and the other left. Watch, therefore, for you do not know what hour your sovereign is coming. Like the 10 virgins, and only 5 had oil, and 5 did not have oil, so they were not prepared for when the groom came. So only the 5 that had oil saw him and entered with him. So those 5 that had oil are the 144,000, the chosen few who fulfilled the Torah, the 5 books of the Torah, through Messiah Yahushua the groom. And it is important that when it comes to those who obey, those who go to the mountains, which he mentioned previously in the verse that I read not that long ago. Yeah, verse 17. Let him who is on the housetop not go down to take anything out of his house. And let him who is in the field not go back to get his clothes. Once again, talking about the day. In Yahudah, this will happen during the day. Those left in that context, from verse 15 to verse 22, in that context, Yahushua doesn't say, no one knows the hour. Be careful because you do not know the hour. He doesn't say that there because these are the ones that obey. And they know the hour. How do they know the hour? Because he told them the hour. What is the hour? When the abomination of desolation appears. That is the hour in which you have to go. So those who obey will recognize it. But those who do not obey, who do not pay attention, are mentioned later on when he says, no one knows the hour. If we are one with the Father is the only one who knows. So he will tell those who are one with him. Because it is written that the Father does not do anything unless he reveals it first to his prophets, his servants, the prophets. The chosen few will have his spirit as his prophets, and therefore Yahweh, through the 2 witnesses, will let them know when it will happen, because the Father knows. And since the Father knows, he will tell the 2 witnesses. The 2 witnesses will reveal it to the chosen few, who are the body of Messiah. So watch therefore, verse 42, for you do not know what hour your sovereign is coming, because he's coming like a thief in the night. People who are of this group, those who do not obey, do not go to the mountains, are waiting for a rapture. Yahushua is telling them, you do not know the hour when that will happen. And you should be watchful, because your sovereign will come and you will not see him. You will not recognize him. Watch therefore, for you do not know what hour your sovereign is coming. But know this, since you didn't get the first part, know this, that if the master of the house, that if the Baal of the house, is what he's saying in Hebrew. But know this, that if the Lord of the house, who is the Lord of this house? Satan, Lucifer. That's why we don't call Lord the Almighty Yahweh, because Lord in Hebrew is Baal, and that is a name and title for Satan. So, but know this, that if the Lord of the house had known what hour the thief would come, that's why Yahweh, as Yahushua is telling us, kept the hour from the angels. Because the Lord of this house, which is the earth, the God of this world, is Satan. And Satan is an angel. That's why Yahweh the Father did not reveal it to the angels. Because if he had revealed it to the angels, the hour in which all this will happen, then Lucifer will know it. And he would have prepared and would not let the second coming happen. This is very important. That's why he didn't reveal it to the angels. Because Lucifer is an angel. And that angel, Lucifer, is the God of this world, as they call him. But know this, that if the Lord of the house had known the hour the thief would come, as a thief in the night, he would have watched and not allowed his house to be broken into. He would not allow the second coming to happen. He would not allow the last to be born. Most people don't even know that he has to be born. They think that he will just appear from heaven. He would have watched and not allowed his house to be broken into. Therefore, you also be ready, For the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. Talking to the many. Watch, because the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. Yahushua is saying whatever your doctrine is of the second coming is wrong. Because that moment when you say that he's coming is not the moment when he's coming. But he's coming at a time that you don't know. So this is important. For the Son of Man, the second coming, is coming at an hour you do not expect. We already read Luke 17. Now let's go to 1 Corinthians 10, verse 1. Moreover, brethren, I do not want you to be unaware that all our fathers were under the cloud. Under the cloud. All passed through the sea. All were immersed into Moshe, in the cloud and in the sea. So Moshe represented the immersion to be baptized. Because when the whole people passed through the Red Sea, represented them being immersed into the doctrine that Moshe was preaching them. Just like when we are immersed in the name of Yahushua, means that we are being immersed in his spirit so that his spirit may teach us all that he has to teach. So Paulus is explaining to us in this chapter that all that happened with the people of Israel when they came out of the Exodus was an example for us to understand what would happen with Messiah and then in the second Exodus. Moreover, brethren, I do not want you to be unaware that all our fathers were under the cloud. All passed through the sea. All were immersed into Moshe in the cloud and in the sea. All ate the same spiritual food. The manna that they ate represented spiritual food because it would just appear. It would fall from heaven. So it represented spiritual food. However, it was physical because they actually ate it. But it represents the spiritual food that we receive through Messiah Yahushua, who is the manna of heaven, the bread of heaven. By receiving his doctrine, we are eating spiritual food, true spiritual food. And all drank the same spiritual drink. When we take the wine during Pesach, it represents us taking the teaching of Messiah, his sacrifice, his testimony. The spiritual food is the name, the seed, the name of Messiah, confessing the name of Messiah. The spiritual drink is believing in the testimony of Messiah, that he died and resurrected after 3 days. So, for they drank of the spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Messiah. The rock represented Messiah, the rock that gave water to everybody. But with most of them, Elohim was not well pleased. With most of them, meaning with the many. With the many, Yahweh is not pleased because they are following wrong doctrines, false doctrines. But with most of them, Elohim was not pleased, for their bodies were scattered in the wilderness. That was the confirmation that Yahweh was not pleased with them when their bodies were scattered, when they died during those 40 years. Now these things became our examples. Paulus understood something that is so important that we need to understand. Everything in the so-called Old Testament happened as an example for the end times, for the people that accepted Messiah to understand what would happen after Messiah. Now these things became our examples, to the intent that we should not lust after evil things, as they also lusted. And do not become idolaters, as were some of them, like in Catholicism and other doctrines. As it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink. We just read that when the Son of Man comes, it will be like the days of Noah. They were eating and drinking. We're seeing it here. As it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. Basically to sin. As in when they sin with the the golden calf. Nor let us commit sexual immorality, as some of them did, and in one day 23,000 fell. Nor let us tempt Messiah, as some of them also tempted, and were destroyed by serpents. This is so important, because Messiah, Mashiach in Hebrew, as I have explained, every letter in Hebrew has a numerical value. So every word in Hebrew has a numerical value when we add the value of each of the letters. Mashiach has a value of 358. Mashiach, value 358. Serpent, Nachash in Hebrew, has the same numerical value, 358. That is why, one of the reasons why, when the people started to complain and do evil and not believe, serpents came and started to bite them, and many of them started to die. So they asked Moshe to please pray to Yahweh to stop that plague. And Yahweh told Moshe to put a serpent on a pole, and everybody that looked at the serpent and believed in the salvation, they would be cured. However, eventually they started worshiping the actual serpent, not understanding that Moshe was putting that serpent on that pole to represent that Messiah 358 will come to earth to be hung from a tree, a pole, in order to kill the serpent, in order to destroy or take away the authority from the serpent. So it is interesting that here Paulus, understanding this, is mentioning Messiah as the one that they were tempting through their words. And they actually were talking about Moshe. So Moshe as a representation of Messiah, as in the fact that when he comes, everybody will be talking bad against him or about him. So, nor let us tempt Messiah, as some of them also tempted, and were destroyed by serpents. Nor let us tempt the 358, as some of them also tempted, and were destroyed by the 358s. Now, all these things happened to them as examples. All these things, everything in the Tanakh, happened as examples. And they were written for our admonition. They were written for us. We are the ones that needed all that to happen, for it to be written and for us to be able to read it and understand what would happen. Now all these things happened to them as examples, and they were written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the ages have come. As I have said, Paulus and the rest of the apostles did not understand the times. They were not given the knowledge of the times. So they were expecting the end to happen at any time. That's why they were written as if they were in the end times. Because us that are in the end times needed all this to be written. And if the apostles would have known that 2,000 years had to pass, they would not have written many things the way they did. So, verse 12, therefore let him who thinks he stands take heed lest he fall. This is such an important verse. We need to always remember this. Therefore let him who thinks he stands take heed lest he fall. No temptation has overtaken you except such as is common to men. But Yahweh is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able, but with the temptation will also make the way of escape, that you may be able to bear it. Blessed be the Most High. Even when the second Exodus happened, Yahweh will give the strength to each and every one in order to come to salvation. I know I already read this last week, but just to start closing for tonight, I'm going to read a few verses from Revelation 12. Revelation 12:6 says, then the woman, the congregation, fled into the wilderness, saw the abomination of desolation in the place that it should not be, and left to the wilderness, like Messiah told the congregation to do in Matthew 24, Mark 13, and Luke 17. Then the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by Yahweh. As Yahushua said, that he was leaving to prepare a place. Where she has a place prepared by Yahweh, that they should be, that they should feed her. They should feed her like the angels, like Yahweh and his son, like the Spirit, Yahweh and the Father and the Son, that they should feed her there 1,260 days, 3 years and a half. So, if they will be fed, the chosen few, for 3 years and a half, that means that they will be harvested during the half of the last 7 years. Christians believe that the rapture is before the 7 years, most of them. That is impossible, because this is the moment when it happens, and it says that they will be fed for 3 years and a half. That means the last 3 years and a half, when the great tribulation will start, like we already saw. Then if we go to verse 13, now when the dragon saw that he had been cast to the earth, he persecuted the woman, the congregation, who gave birth to the male child, to the second coming, the last one who died and resurrected and went up to take Lucifer out of heaven. That's why it doesn't go after the male child, because the male child is no longer on earth. It goes after the woman, because the woman, the congregation, will still be on earth after the second coming has already left earth in a cloud, as we see in Revelation 11. But the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle. The congregation will be transformed in the blink of an eye to the new bodies. And remember that when Messiah was resurrected, he was able to change his appearance. He was able to disappear and appear somewhere else. He would travel at the speed of thought, because now the body will be made of light, which is something that we see in Hebrew. The word light and the word skin is very similar, with a different letter. The pronunciation is very similar, showing us that now we have a skin made of dust, but in the eternity we're going to have skin made of light, and therefore we're going to be able to travel at the speed of thought. And I'm sure this will happen at this time. But the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness to her place. That is the harvest, the transformation. That she might fly into the wilderness to her place. So she will walk first, she will walk out. When she sees the abomination of desolation, she will go away from her house like Lot. But as she, the woman, the congregation, is going away, Yahweh will give her power in order to just go to him in a moment, in the blink of an eye. That she might fly into the wilderness to her place, where she is nourished for a time and times and a half a time. Once again, confirming 3 years and a half, not 7 years. From the presence of the serpent. Where is the serpent now? On earth. That's why the dragon became a serpent, because there were dragons that could fly, but now the dragon that was in the second heaven was thrown out, so he became a serpent, because now it is just going all over earth, the land. So the serpent spewed water. So like I said, from the presence of the serpent at this time in history will be present on earth, this reality, this world. So Yahweh is saying that he will give the congregation a new body, in order for the congregation to go away from the presence of the serpent, meaning go away from this reality, this world. That's why in Revelation 15, the chosen few are above the firmament, out of this reality, because the firmament is the heavens, the earth is where the presence of the serpent will be. So verse 15, so the serpent spewed water out of his mouth like a flood after the woman. This water will be the army of the enemy, the army that will eventually also, will kill most of humans after the chosen few are taken out of earth. So that so the serpent spewed water out of his mouth like a flood after the woman. A flood, like we read in Luke, Matthew, Mark, when the Son of Man comes, will be like Noah. And what happened with Noah? He preached, nobody believed. He entered the ark and the flood came. Here we see that once the congregation enters the ark, the prepared place for 3 years and a half, by getting a new body and getting out of this reality, then a flood will happen. The serpent spewed water out of his mouth like a flood, but it will be not a flood of water, a flood of death, basically, after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away by the flood. But the earth helped the woman. The earth are the many. Water, the sea, are the nations. Earth are the many. The few are the trees, who by having the seed, the word of Yahweh, grow and get to be in heaven. They grow and get like really close to the sky, of course. And when we talk about the trees that existed before the flood, most people cannot even imagine the height of those trees, the strength of those trees. So the trees represent the chosen few. They are not mentioned here because they are already in the prepared place. Now it's only mentioning water, which is an army of the nations that will come to destroy the earth, which is the many that believe. Because the woman fled, now there are two, one will be taken. That one that is taken is earth. It says, but the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon has spewed out of his mouth. So the water that was thrown to take the woman is actually going to get the earth, the believers who do not have the true doctrine, but do follow the commandments. That's why verse 17 explains what I had just said. And the dragon, Lucifer, was enraged with the woman. He's going to be enraged with the congregation because the dragon was not able to kill her, was not able to destroy the congregation because they were taken out without dying. And he went, the dragon, to make war with the rest of her offspring. With the rest of her offspring. So the congregation is the woman, the first offspring that died and resurrected in order to be born spiritually was the second coming. But there are another offspring of hers that will have to die. That's why it mentions offspring, because the male child had to die in order to enter the kingdom. These people will have to die in order to enter the kingdom. So that's why they are mentioned as offspring of her, but they are not the firstborn, the male child, who is from Ephraim. That's why Ephraim represents the many. Ephraim already entered, now the rest of her offspring. And he went to make war with the rest of her offspring. That is when the water goes to the earth, who keep the commandments of Yahweh and have the testimony of Yahushua the Messiah. It doesn't say they have the word of Yahweh, meaning they didn't have the name. Because if they had the name, they would not be earth, they would be trees, and they would be the woman. Since they don't have the name, it only mentions the fact that they have the testimony. They believe in their heart to be justified, as Romans 10:10. With the heart we believe for justification, and with the mouth we confess for salvation. So they have the testimony of Messiah because they believe in their hearts. But they do not only believe, but they also act according to what they believe. So that's why they keep the commandments. This is very important. That's why these people, the many, will have to die during this time, even though they follow the commandments and the testimony. But since they do not have the word, as Yahweh promised to those who have the word in Revelation 3, when he talks to Philadelphia, those who have the name will be saved. Those who do not will have to die and then be resurrected, as we see here, and justified if they follow the commandments and had the testimony in their heart. Mark 13, verse 13 and 14. And you will be hated by all for my name's sake. Who was talking? Yahushua. So you will be hated by all for the name Yahushua. It doesn't say you will be hated by Muslims, or you will be hated by Jewish people, or you will be hated by unbelievers, or by atheists. No, it says by all. So it includes believers. It includes Christians. And you will be hated by all for my name's sake. That's why when you come to a Christian and tell him the name or her the name, it is common when they are Christians to the core for them to reject it and hate us, because they actually love the fake name. They love the lies in which they feel comfortable following. And I am speaking like that because I repeat, if you are one of the chosen, once you realize there is something wrong in the doctrine in which you are, you will come out. If not, you are just part of her. So I am talking to those who want to be part of the false doctrine, which the Almighty calls the whore of Babylon, starting with the Catholic doctrine, but it goes to all her daughters, which are the rest of Christian doctrines. So it says 13, and you will be hated by all for my name's sake, for the name Yahushua, the real name. But he who endures in what? In his name, to the end shall be saved. Those who have the name, even if they are hated by all, will be saved, as he promised in Revelation 3 when he talked to Philadelphia, the congregation that represents the chosen few. Verse 14, so when you see the abomination of desolation is spoken of by Daniel the prophet, is standing where it ought not, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Yehudah flee to the mountains. Let those who are part of the chosen, let those who praise Yahweh flee to the mountains, meaning of Yehudah. Let him who is on the housetop not go down into the house, nor enter to take anything out of his house. And let him who is in the field not go back to get his clothes. So the chosen few who obey left when they saw the false Messiah in the world. But those who did not recognize and did not obey, because they were the virgins without the oil, and they did not understand the coming of the Son of Man, it says, but woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing babies in those days, and pray that your flight might not be in winter, for in those days there will be tribulation, such as not has been since the beginning of the creation which Elohim created until this time, nor even shall be, nor ever shall be. Sorry. In Deuteronomy 32, 10 and 11, we see that Yahweh uses the symbolism of wings of eagle to talk about the power and miracles that he performed to take Israel out of Egypt. So even though they did not fly, Yahweh uses that metaphor, as he does in Revelation 12:14. So the Almighty will do his miracles, and that's what the wings of the great eagle represent. However, when it comes to the transformation and what we see that happened with Enoch, that happened with Eliyahu, and what happened with the Messiah, Yahushua, where the way he acted and the things that he could do when he was already resurrected, then we can understand that when the chosen few are transformed, they will be able to do things that nobody has been able to do ever in this reality other than Messiah Yahushua when he resurrected. So even though in Deuteronomy and Exodus 19:4 and Isaiah 40, 30 and 31, talking about the Exodus, mentions the wings of eagle as a symbol, as a metaphor, it does mention it in the book of Revelation 12:14. And like I said, at that time will be the transformation, so it may be something more than just a metaphor. It may be yet something physical. I'm not saying literal wings, although if he wanted he could do it, of course, but I'm saying the ability of Messiah to tell it, basically like to travel at the speed of thought. Micah chapter 2 verse 12 and 13, these are very important verses. It says, I will surely assemble all of you, O Jacob. I will surely gather the remnant of Israel. Once again, I will assemble all of you, the many. I will surely gather the remnant, the few, of Israel. I will put them together like sheep of the fold. I will put them together, the many and the few, eventually, like a flock in the midst of their pasture. They shall make a loud noise because of so many people. The many is added in the translation. It could be said as, they shall make a loud noise because of the people. The miracles and everything will make us make a great noise. The one who breaks open will come up before them. This is so important. The one who breaks open is the second coming. because Yahushua is the door. The second coming is the good shepherd who opens the door, breaks open through the true doctrine for the sheep to enter the kingdom of the Father. Then the one who breaks open will come up before them. So that's why we saw that the woman gives birth to a male child who goes up to the throne and takes out Lucifer. It says here, the one who breaks open will come up before them. So the witness, like Moshe, dies, resurrects, and goes up before the chosen few goes to the wilderness and is taken up. So that's why it says it like that. Everything is chronologically perfect. The one who breaks open will come up before them. They will break out. When they flee, they will break out of this world, this reality. Pass through the gate. Yahushua said, I am the gate and the good shepherd. So through Messiah, the chosen few will be able to pass through him, being transformed to the new reality. Pass through the gate and go out by it. Go out of this reality through Messiah. They will break out, pass through the gate, and go out by it. Their king, the second coming, as king, because the first coming was as priest, the high priest. Their king will pass before them. Once again, confirms he will have to die and pass to the other reality before the chosen few can do it. Their king will pass before them with Yahweh at their head, because Yahushua is at the head. So the king will do it on earth while Yahushua is on heaven, being Yahushua the intercessor between Yahweh and men. That's why with Yahweh at their head.